I had the pleasure of introducing our incredible speaker today, Elise Radowitz, who is the president and founder of Velocity Leader. Elise and I first met last year at the EGIA Foundation and Women in HVACR Tee-Off for the Trades golf tournament. And I'll just say, not only is she an expert in leadership, but she's also a hell of a golfer. With over 10 years of experience helping HVAC owners find success, Elise has become a trusted authority in leadership development. And in just last year alone, she trained 150 contractors on how to maximize their profits through stronger management and leadership. Her mission at Velocity Leader is simple, but it's powerful. It's to transform managers into confident, emotionally intelligent leaders who drive productivity, profitability, and team success. So I noticed in the chat, there's a couple of questions about how the system's working. So I just want to go over a couple housekeeping items. We're recording today's session, so feel free to silence your cell phones, close those office doors, really engage. I love the chat right now. It's popping off. There's going to also be some polls, so be sure to, just submit your questions and any, comments, concerns throughout the show. We want this to be engaging, a two-way exchange of information. So let's jump in the chat right now. Tell me who you think is going to win the Super Bowl. Who's in the Super Bowl? All right. Elise and I are big Packers fans, and unfortunately they shit the bed. So I'm going Washington Commanders. Gonna root for the underdog, the rookie Jaden Daniels. But last but not least, guys, I just wanted to show you a little bit about today's agenda and explain that Elise is hosting this really awesome virtual growth series. And it's piggybacking off of today's information, off of today's learnings. And we're just really excited to invite you to that today as well. So if you scan this QR code, I'll also drop the link in the chat. But we're going to choose one person that fills out the interest form to receive a free seat in Elise's virtual series. At the end of the show today, we'll announce that. And that's valued at over $2,800. So please make sure you stay till the end. Guys, I'm really excited for you to learn from Elise today, and her energy and her expertise really is just unmatched. I love working with her. She really is just passionate about helping HVAC business owners grow. So without further ado, I'd love to introduce you to Elise Radowitz. Take it away, Elise.
Thanks, CJ. So yeah, I'm a little, I got nerves like a first tee box of a golf outing. Everybody's watching you. So I'm gonna go with the energy on that. But a little bit about you can let me share. Are you seeing my screen? Let me see. Yes, you're seeing my screen. I think you see my screen. Yes. Okay. Cool. So a little bit about what we do. So I own Velocity Leader. I started the company. I'll get to my why in a little bit. But essentially, our like CJ said, our mission is pretty simple. I partner with companies in the trades to develop their leaders, only the trades. When I started this company, I started it with the trades in mind. I'll get into a little bit of that in just a second. But we partner with companies that want to develop their leaders, and we coach and train and equip them, because you cannot equip what you don't want. You can't expect what you don't equip. And so that's the whole idea behind leadership development is creating high performance teams. So how we do that, a little bit of that, why we do it. So picture on the left is my husband and I at a skills competition last year in Wisconsin. So he is a carpenter by trade. He owns his own business. And so when I say that I'm here to support the trades, it's very, very near and dear to my heart because I married it. And so when I look at like our group of our closest friends, they are entrepreneurs in the plumbing, electrical, new construction, remodeling industries. My background is in HVAC. I worked for a wholesaler for over 10 years. And so I was fortunate enough to get to meet a whole bunch of people that are on the call probably, like you anyways, HVAC contractors. So I took that passion and seeing what kind of a training rich industry we have with HVAC. There's sales training, business coaching. There's not anybody from my vantage point. There's nobody that's specifically providing just leadership training. And that's where I went, you know what, I'm pretty sure I can fill that void. So blessed enough to have some really great partnerships in the industry. One is Women in HVAC. I'm going to give a plug for that organization. I absolutely love the community that's there. If you're a woman and you're in HVACR or have a technician, just to me, it helped open up my eyes to what the community is and how large the opportunities are in this industry. I can't say enough about that organization. And the next one I would say is Carrier. So I am a factory authorized trainer with Carrier. So if you see me at any events, the picture you can see on the right here is from me doing a workshop at the ICP Elite dealer meeting last year. So you get fat hours for some of my offerings. So I really appreciate those partnerships because it's great when it feels right on both sides. So that's a little bit about why I do it. A little bit about the virtual series. So really what I'm doing today, I wanted this to feel just like a virtual series that I'm leading for managers. Currently, I have one that started in fall and it'll wrap up by April. I have another one. So training season typically takes place fall and spring. And so this next session virtual series kicks off February 6th. And so really today I wanted to allow you to see what an experience is like with me. I was telling CJ earlier that I don't love the word training because you train animals and you educate humans. So really what I'm offering is something different than I think what has been offered in the industry previously. It's a lot of times we have these one-day workshops, sort of spray and pray, I'll call it, spray with a bunch of information and pray that you get something out of it. I do things a little differently. I want it to be interactive. Leadership is a contact sport. I'm going to give you opportunities to turn on your camera, show up, and not just sit back and kind of like hang out and let me talk at you for an hour. Nobody wants that. So I'll talk a little bit more about what to experience, and you'll see it and feel it today over the next hour or so. So that's a little bit about the series. Don't forget to scan the QR code and get in for that seat for the series for yourself or somebody on your team. So is that enough of a pitch on that, CJ? Awesome. Okay, so now I want to get to know a little bit about you. This is a question I ask in every single workshop, every single class that I lead. What is your biggest leadership challenge? Now, I'll admit, I'm going to give you, I have a couple options here. I do have an other as well. But CJ, when you launched the poll, I'm going to give him a little background on where these questions, like where the options came from. The options that you see on the screen in terms of biggest leadership challenge, these come from the last year of me doing trainings. I've basically come up with these 5 or so most common challenges that I hear. And I would love to know, delegation always comes up. Yep. I'd love to know from you. And if you're not sure, or maybe it's not one listed on there, that's okay too.
Still looks like some great interaction. People are still voting, so I'm going to leave it open for a couple more minutes or a couple more.
That's fine. We will, well, good news is we're definitely going to talk about delegation and letting go. I'll address that today because that can be one of the biggest limiters to growth is us letting go of the vine, us letting go of the steering wheel. It's hard as an owner myself. It's hard. I'm not gonna sit here and tell you it's easy.
So Lisa, I closed the poll and brought up sharing of the results if you wanted to talk to them a little bit.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so overwhelmingly, at least for this audience, delegating and letting go more. Yep, we will talk about that as that's one of the keys to creating a high performance team is allowing those people that you put in those positions to do that job, to trust them to do the job. And they're going to do it differently than you. We'll talk more about this later, but I think that's a pretty decent theme here. Sharing a vision, setting goals, all things that we'll talk about a lot of these today, because it's getting buy-in for your ideas and having people kind of all rowing in the same direction. So the reason I bring these up, so the other thing I want to make sure that we're aware of is these top 5 challenges. I'm going to flip it a little bit and also say these are the skills and capabilities we need to be developing in our leaders right now. We don't have to do it all overnight. We're not like an iPhone where we just like automatically upgrade ourselves like overnight. But these are the things, these are the capabilities and skills that we need to be developing in our leaders if they're going to be successful, managers or leaders. So the next thing I want to show is a little bit, I always like to give a little bit of color in terms of, I know that there are a ton of different contractors come in a variety of shapes and sizes. And so I've sort of played around with the idea of like, how do I bucket them off? How do I share with you like what I see from a 40,000 foot view landscape? So I personified these a little bit. I'll tell you, I'll give you the background. The dude is by no means, if you're a $500,000 to $800,000 person, the dudette, I don't mean it to be all dudes by any means, but I was trying to give a wink and a nod to the Big Lebowski where it's the dude, it's the guy, right? It's the one person that is like the go-to for everything. That's really what's happening at the dude level. It's the owner that wears all the hats and does all the things internally and externally. So I'm going to go through a little bit of just the different challenges that I see at different levels within the contractor space. And really what I'm going to speak to is, of course, the solutions that my company can bring, but I would also say any partner that you're looking for in the space. I mean, you can do a one size fits all, or you can do something that's tailored to meet the needs of your company. So in that $500,000 to $800,000 space, and I should probably explain my shorthand HR background, EEs is employees. So at around 80% of the industry, we're looking at that the dude 500 to 800, they have about 1 to 3 employees. So that's where the owner's probably doing sales and ops. And so one of the ways that we can kind of take the professional development up a notch for those owners is to give them DISC training. And for those of you, and I'll explain this in a little bit, it is one of the keys to creating that high performance team and those managers. DISC is really to help them better connect with people and understand with the homeowner, you can really use that as a skill to leverage for communication. Next one is the wolf pack. So if you think about The Hangover, the guys in The Hangover refer to themselves as the wolf pack. And so while it was maybe a shit show at times in the movie, the thing I love about the wolf pack, and this is the $1 to $1.5 million contractors, about 3 to 8 employees, it's organized chaos. But the thing that I'm going to say that I love about the wolf pack like level is the trust. Those individuals trust each other without a doubt. That company culture and that identity is going to resonate as that company grows and scales. So that's what I love to say about that. At this point, we're probably documenting processes because we're thinking about how do we keep, kind of if this thing is working, how do we scale it to make sure that it's sustainable and scalable. So we're documenting processes, and that's where I'm seeing owners and managers go into my virtual series called Maximize Your Impact. So that's a little bit of at that wolf pack level.
Elise, I've always thought of myself as a one-man wolf pack, but when I met
Yeah.
you, my wolf pack grew by one.
Well, I won't make is that a handbag you're wearing? Is that? Yeah, well, thank you, CJ. That's nice. You want to be in the trenches with somebody. It's more fun to be there together than alone. The next level is going to be the $2 to $5 million contractor. So you're going to have about 10 to 20 employees. And this is less than 5% of the industry. And I call this Ocean's 11 level. That is where you have like these skilled players. You have everyone knows their role. They know how to execute. At this point, you're maybe creating departments and you're starting to have, this is where some of the dysfunction comes in. This is where you can potentially have people jockeying for position if you're managers, or we end up, and not intentionally, but creating these silos. I have a friend of mine that I was talking to last week, and she was explaining to me first team and second team mentality. It's something that she does at her plumbing company. And what she means, like what she explained by that was first team mentality. First team, I'm responsible to the peers at my level. So as an owner, I have my first team is all the managers, my management team. My second team is the people that report to me. And so I have a responsibility to the first team, but where you see some of this, where I see some of this coming out is where you'll have people in meetings, maybe it's a manager going, well, they decided this, but we're going to do that. That mentality and infighting really slows down growth, and it erodes trust. And so just is being aware of sometimes there's, people that are kind of vying for position or trying to grab the steering wheel a little bit. Some of the great things that are happening in this level is we're starting to leverage scorecards, KPIs, key performance indicators. So that's usually coming in from like a best practice group, or maybe like somebody using EOS, Pinnacle. Even if you've heard of a strategic planning framework, that's where a lot of the scorecards and KPIs, like really nailing and dialing in your annual plan, is where a lot of that framework comes from. So the next level is called Miracle. And no, it's not like, oh, it's a miracle they made it. This is a reference to the 80s movie with, it's not Kevin Costner. I want to say it. Who is it? CJ?
Kurt Russell.
Kurt Russell. Dang it. Okay. All right. Kurt Russell. Kevin
That was
Costner's
before I was even born, but I know it's Kurt Russell.
There you go. So Miracle is the 1980s hockey movie about the U.S. men's Olympic team. Now that team wasn't necessarily filled with like the highest paid athletes. At this point, since we're adding headcount, and that's critical to growing our business and adding that the right people, we're hiring for will, and we're training for skill. And so by that, like at this point, we've probably had quite a few processes documented in our business, and now we want to make sure that they're doing things the way that we want them to do them. And so at this point, I'm seeing companies do, and it could be this level. It can start. Any of these can start sooner too, but that weekly training for sales and technicians. This is something that's super critical because I feel like it almost becomes like a continuous improvement culture at this point, where they're constantly trying to get better. And so that's where at some points we may have companies that are adding a management team. And so now you got to look at, okay, well, if I have leaders stepping into roles to work on the business and be more strategic, how do I backfill my working managers? And so it comes in to play where we're going to look at emerging leaders. Those are the ones that you're kind of keeping your eye on for maybe potential management roles, maybe even future leadership roles at some point. But we'll talk about, that's one of the keys I'm going to get to at the end, is identifying top talent and then figuring out how to develop them. And what does that mean? So I'll go into that later on this afternoon. That's the sixth key, but really figuring out what that means. And so I have a variety of services that fit all these different levels. Of course, I'm here promoting the services that I do, but really I'm going to bring it back to a more global level. If you can figure out someone who creates something for you, like and you're a partner to be able to do a custom program that fits your needs, that's what you're looking for in anything that you do. And so that's really where we're aiming for any of the solutions that we're talking about today. So I have a question for you, and CJ is going to launch the poll in a second. I'm curious to know what you think the most important relationship your employees has. What's the most important relationship that your employees have? Is it with their manager? Is it with their coworkers? Is it with you, the owner? We'll give a little time for them to answer. Less choices. They're quicker to respond.
Yeah, and don't look at the title of this masterclass because it might be a dead giveaway.
I appreciate the owners that think it's them, though. I'm sorry to tell you it's not you. I love you, but it's not you. So for those of you that answered managers, yes, it is managers. Now, interestingly, I think, yeah, I mean, coworkers, yes, you'd think that's the second most popular answer. I usually get coworkers, I get a split crowd of coworkers or managers. I'll give you the statistics on it. It's not just like from the view of Elise here. So according to SHRM, the Society for Human Resources Management, when they surveyed employees, they asked them that question. When they talked about when they had people that said that their managers were effective compared to the ones that had, the non-effective ones compared to the ones that had effective managers, they were twice as likely to feel satisfied in their job when they had highly effective managers. And the other part of it was that they're twice as likely to feel a deep sense of commitment and belonging to their employer when they have effective managers. That's because that relationship that your employees have with their manager has the biggest impact on their job satisfaction. I'm sure you heard the phrase, people don't quit companies, they quit managers. It's true. The research backs it up. And so the other thing I want to bring to your attention, if you're the owner, it's your responsibility. And by you, I mean it's the employer's responsibility, but I'm going to speak to you, Mr. and Miss Homeowner, or owner, I should say. It's your responsibility to give your employees good leaders, because that creates a good experience for them. And so that's the really inherently the why of why do I even invest in creating leaders or creating managers? But why do it? That's because it's your responsibility to give them that great experience. So let's talk about how we do that. We'll go into the keys right now. So the 6 keys for driving profit-driving managers, so moving them from that firefighting kind of reactive mode into being a proactive leader. The first one is understanding the difference between leading and managing. And this is one that I see constantly. We promote them into leadership roles, and we assume that they're going to be great at their job because they have a lot of natural things, like great things going for them. But we forget that there's a difference between being an individual contributor and a people manager. And I'm going to give you a little bit of, this is what I'll go through in one of the first session really of the virtual series, is talk about the 2 hats of leadership. The one is management, the manager hat, and the other one is the leader hat. Okay, so managing from a kind of, I'm not going to read through every single one of these, but essentially that manager hat is going to be tasks that have to do with day-to-day managing of priorities, managing of tasks for your people, and making decisions quickly. That's one of the big ones, is if you can understand kind of the maybe it's conflict that's happening on the team and you try to identify the issue, figure out a solution and make a decision. Those are things that you're going to do when you're wearing the manager hat. On the other side, when you're wearing the leader hat, these are going to be more strategic, big picture things. Creating a vision. And this was one of the challenges that a lot of people have, is casting that vision. Like, you cannot share vision and mission and give people that enough, because it kind of means something different to everybody. So if you can repeat it and remind them of the vision, it helps them to remember where they're going and what we're contributing to. Motivation and encouragement is another one. Adaptability. The biggest thing I see a lot of times is, there's change and challenge happens every single day. How you move through it is how people take cues from you on how they should move through it. Are we calm? Are we moving forward? Are we trying to be solutions based? Or are we looking at the problems and we're being negative and we're focusing on that? They're taking their cues from you constantly, or your managers constantly. So the other part that I want to bring up is the last one: accountability. Taking responsibility when the team fails or when it succeeds. And this was a lesson that I learned reading the book Extreme Ownership. If you haven't read that one, it's a phenomenal book. But the "so goes the leader, so goes the team" is the phrase. And the other piece of this is, whether the team wins or loses, putting that on your back and having people know that it is okay to fail and that you have them. And like, if this thing fails, I'll make sure that you don't, I'm not going to throw you in front of the bus. I'll take it on my back and go, okay, how can we fix it? What can we do differently? That's, I think, the biggest thing from a leadership perspective. That sets the tone for culture. So in all of this, there's a balancing act, right? I'm not advocating that you wear the manager hat all the time and you wear the leader hat all the time. A well-rounded leader is spending their time wearing both hats. So I have a couple questions for you. Don't have to answer them in the chat. I just want you to think about these. Where do you spend your time now? Where do you spend your time every single day? And again, you can think about this for yourself, or you can think about these questions to bring to your managers. And by the way, anything in this entire presentation, if you want to screenshot it, if you want to use it for yourself or for your team, feel free to have at it. Screenshot your away. So let me give you this as an idea. Try this. Take a piece. I'm sure you have a piece of paper out. Take it and draw a circle on it. I want you to just document to get an idea of a baseline of where you're at right now. Create a pie chart for yourself. And I want you to think about, in the last week, how much time are you spending in managing? If you think back to the managing tasks, right? The day-to-day, the spending time. And this may vary depending on the team that you have. And I hate saying that, because they're always like, well, what is it, at 50-50? I'm like, you're not always looking for that. It depends on the team, depends on the season. How much time are you spending in managing and how much time are you spending in leading? Just a simple little pie chart to give yourself a visual. The last question I want to ask you is, if you are in control of your time, what should it be? And the reason I want you to think about this is, if it's skewed one way, how do you backfill that? Like, if you're spending all your time managing or supervising, I get that, but you're not developing your people. And eventually your stronger people are going to leave. Why? Because they want your attention. Why? Because they want to be developed. People want to be developed. And when they stop growing and stretching, then they leave the organization. And so by wearing those different hats, you're going to be on your way to showing that flexibility and being great at both of them, because you do need both the manager hat and the leader hat to be successful. So that's just a little bit of, go ahead.
I'd love to share my drawing.
Oh, God.
I think I'm about 75% managing and 25% leading. And I think, if I'm honest with myself, a successful split would probably be the inverse of that: 75% leading and around 25% managing.
Mm-hmm. And the whole thing is, you're starting with the baseline. It's not like putting yourself on here to beat yourself up. You have to start. You can't fix what you don't acknowledge. And so in all of this, and leadership is a journey, everything, professional development is self-development. So if you're investing in some of that, you're going to by nature become a better version of yourself, because you're actively working at it. So I would say this is a starting point to get yourself an idea of where you're at now, and how can I move forward? What are some things I can do to make sure to get that split a little more close to even? The second key is going to be understanding your communication style. And this is where I'm going to get on my soapbox a little bit for DISC, but in general, there are other options than just DISC for a behavioral profile assessment. I'll list a couple of them, just so you could, if you don't know about DISC, you at least can have some frame of reference for other ones you may have heard of. Predictive Index is one, Myers-Briggs, Clifton Strengths, Colby, Enneagram, and then lastly, DISC. So I'm a certified DISC practitioner. So of course my camp is firmly in Planet DISC. So what I'm going to talk a little bit about is that I love DISC for a couple of reasons. The biggest is that it's really straightforward. You're either a D, I, S, or C, or a blend of some of them. And so I really like the straightforwardness of it. I also like it because it can apply to my personal or professional life. And I'll give some examples on that. But really what DISC is it measures your behavioral tendencies and priorities. That is it. Here's the thing. We like to think that we're probably more complicated than we are. We're pretty much not. We're kind of creatures of habit. Like we have some things hardwired into us. And so really DISC is supposed to help us understand our behaviors and others' behaviors, because then we can create stronger relationships. It's on us as the manager to flex our communication style to meet the needs of our people. And so if I can better understand how I communicate, because typically we're going to communicate from our preferred style, then I can start to understand the people I come into contact with, what might their style be? How do they want to be communicated to? Like, how can I better connect with them? So I'm going to ask you two.
Real quick, sorry, just wanted to address Anna Perez's question in the chat.
Oh, okay.
She said, understanding what again? Anna, did what Elise just explain clarify for you? Hopefully so.
Yeah, so we're really measuring behaviors in DISC. That's the whole that's the end game, is to understand kind of why we do what we do. And so I'm going to ask you to think about two questions. And this again can be for yourself or for your managers. This is like anybody you come into contact with, but I think it starts with us leading ourselves first. How do you see yourself? Do you see yourself as more fast-paced and outspoken, or more cautious and reflective? And these should be pretty kind of quick answers. So if you answered fast-paced and outspoken, you can probably already tell which one I am. You're going to land in the upper region of D or I. It's probably where your style is going to be, your primary style. If you're more cautious or reflective, you're going to be that S or C, the bottom part of the graph. The next question I want you to think about is, okay, new project comes across your desk. Are you going to be more questioning and skeptical, or are you going to be more accepting and warm? Kind of like yeah, let's go. Okay. Or you're gonna be like, I got some questions. Hold on just a second. There's no right or wrong. It just is. So depending on how you answered that, if you're more questioning and skeptical, you're going to be on the left side of our D's and C's. And if you're more accepting and warm, you're going to probably be in that IS range. And so again, I'm going like 40,000 foot view on you, so you just get an idea of this, of what you can get out of it. But essentially, if you're more fast-paced and outspoken, accepting and warm, you're going to land in that I area. This is just like all of those questions basically kind of determine where your dot gets placed in your graph. And I'll go into a little bit more detail on what the D is. So this is the DISC model. I'm going to go through, I'm going to give you some examples for me. So no shock to anybody probably on this call that knows me for 5 minutes. I'm an I. Influence, like positive, optimistic, kind of never met somebody who's a stranger. So for me in my career, I have worked with a lot of D's in my career, a lot of sales managers, a lot of visionary, sort of many of the owners even of HVAC companies are D's. And me as an I style, like I'm comfortable with that. Like we sort of align on the fact that we're quick, we're fast paced, we're outspoken, we're quick to make decisions. I love that. I like working with that style. I'm like, kind of like, paint me the picture and I'll fill in the gaps and let's freaking go. I married an S. My pace is a lot for him. He balances me out. I love him. That's why I married him. He is that steady Eddie that I need to make sure that when I'm communicating things with him, I don't put him on the spot. I give him questions and I sort of make him like, go, hey, just throwing this out there. Think about this. I don't make it very committal. Whereas working with D's, I'm almost trained myself. Like it's bullet points, it's direct questions. It's like no holds barred. Like just, hey, I need an answer from you on this right now. If I did that with him, I mean, I've done that. It doesn't really get me the greatest results. So I have to adjust my approach to communicating with an S. So the same idea comes. So that I just give you those couple examples, and I don't want to forget my friends, the C's. The C's are going to be those data-driven people, the people that the more knowledge they have, the better. You give these people something, like you give them a system to create, or you give them some data. These are the ones that thrive on that stuff. These are going to, they're a lot of times you'll see them in technician roles, you'll see them in financial roles, maybe in your companies, but there's strengths and weaknesses to each one. Each behavior shows up differently when we're stressed. The biggest thing is I just want you to understand like the impact it can give you in the richness and strength of your relationships. That's what you get out of DISC, or really any behavioral profile. But that's one of the keys, is understanding where I communicate from. So I can, if you think about a rubber band, like I can stretch to meet people where they are, to make sure that I'm communicating to them how they can hear me best.
Can I bring up a question from the poll or from the chat real quick?
Yeah.
If a customer hasn't taken a disc assessment, how are you supposed to flex to match that style? And just having taken this before, I'll give my 2 cents about like
Okay.
if you go through the disc assessment, it's kind of a look in the mirror. Like you're understanding kind of the tells and the triggers and the like predispositions in yourself and like how you behave and how you interact and communicate. So then it's almost like I'm more I'm more like prone and understanding of people a little bit quicker when I see some things in them that I might have or I might not have. Maybe you could talk about that for a little.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a really great question. This comes up a lot too, is like, yeah, they haven't taken it. No, I totally get that. So think of those two questions as you're first meeting somebody. Are they more skeptical? Are they more cautious and reflective? Like, think about, you can kind of gauge where they're at, and then you can adjust your communication style. If somebody's you're walking into the customer's home, and they're kind of like eyes down, like I was just having this conversation with somebody of like, what's a tell that someone's an S? And I was like, well, eye contact. um I's and S's are people. D's and C's tend to be more the task oriented people. If that makes sense. So how you can adjust, it's really on you to adjust your style. So if someone's like, I mean, I'm sorry, you're gonna know an I, they're kind of like the most obvious because they just don't stop talking. Um, but they'll give you more information than you ever wanted. A C is going to be somebody who wants those data points. Maybe they want to know, like, well, maybe they'll probably go to ROI, which I know is hard to justify for a system. You're like, it's not necessarily going to about, but if you talk to an S, it's like, well, let's figure out the comfort concerns that are in your home. Do you have hot or cold spots? Like, the S's are going to be the people that really want this for their family, and you can try to understand like where they're coming from and how they're making the decisions. D's are probably going to be, they're going to probably want to drive the conversation in some of this. And so I think the D's are some of they're a little bit louder. They're going to want to know, like, what's the process, when's the time frame, what's it going to cost. Like, you want to give them those things as kind of confidently as you can. And so you can use this knowledge to be able to have better relationships all around. But that's where I see a lot of the contractors using it to uh, get to know their homeowners really well, and maybe improve their close rate. I would never guarantee that, but I think that you having a better relationship with somebody is going to give you a better experience with them.
I have a horrible rap of inviting every door knocker into my house. I've bought every mixtape on Venice Beach Boulevard. I've bought every flower that everybody has tried to sell me at the restaurant on Valentine's Day. So I must have a tell that salespeople can just lean into.
You're a people pleaser, I think. I think you might be like an IS, perhaps. You're definitely that people person, but like you're probably like, oh, that sounds really nice. I want to do
Luke,
that.
Luke says, "What's my address?" He'll be right over.
Right. You need a new system, don't
I'm
you?
rocking a 20-year-old system, Luke. So if you're in the
Oh,
Sacramento area, you better come hook me up.
there you go. So that's a little bit about DISC without going. I'll get off my soapbox now, but I mean, if you can't tell, I love talking about DISC. I love kind of figuring out. For me, I've done, so the probably sick thing that I'll admit right now is that I've done all of those personality profiles that I listed on that page. I've literally done all of them. I love to learn about myself. I love to learn about others. Like, it just, I don't know. I could talk about that all day. All right. So key number 3: understanding when your thinking is serving and not serving you. Okay, so the best way I can say this is, like, everybody talks about mindset, and you probably heard about it. Essentially, mindset is, what are the stories that you're telling yourself? Your brain, we are hardwired for comfort and familiarity. And so anything that brushes up against that, our brain immediately starts telling us stories of like, well, here's why it's going to fail, or here's why, like, fear and comfort, and try to keep you safe, because doing something that's not comfortable is scary. And so your brain wants to protect you, and it creates these stories, and they're not always serving you. So I just want to address that quickly, if I can. So from if anyone's heard of, and this comes from the 15, I have it on the bottom of my screen, 15 commitments of conscious leadership. The thought of above the line and below the line thinking. You may have heard of this before. I'm going to kind of give you a little bit more to understand what it means when we're talking above the line. When I'm above the line, I am positive, proactive. I am like growth mindset. I'm only seeing abundance. I'm not thinking about scarcity or where I'm going to find things. I'm constantly looking for solutions. That is when I'm above the line, proactive, and behaviors follow. When I'm below the line, this is where I'm more reactive. I'm going to be more pessimistic. It's very much blame game, win, lose. I probably have less energy. I'm just sort of like, I make excuses. I only find, problems, not solutions. I sometimes I just do nothing because I'm super negative and I'm just like, I'm out. I want to address this because it's very real. Like above the line and below the line is very much part of the human experience. But the biggest thing that I can tell you is the thing in between is called the choice line. We have a choice to be able to bounce ourselves back from below the line to above the line. And let me just give you an example really quick as I give you some how you operate in above the line. So if I'm operating with above the line thinking, I see my employees and my customers as like a welcomed interruption. Someone comes into my office, yep, come on in, stop on in, yep, go ahead. Get that customer calling me saying they have an issue with something. I'm going to look for solutions. I'm going to try to be as proactive as I can. Now, let's take those same interactions and let's talk about when we're below the line. When we're below the line, that interruption from my employee, I'm probably really annoyed. I'm tapping my fingers probably. I'm not going to show up as the best version of me, admittedly. Like, but that version of me exists. So we're not going to just be like, oh no, I'm just, just slough it off. Same thing with the customer interaction. If a customer calls me and they have a problem, I may start blaming. I may start making excuses. I may start trying to like see how I can win and they can lose, or it's very much like it's a totally different way of those two interactions happening, and it's all based on our mindset and for above the line and below the line. And so that's why, because it drives us to act a certain way. I mentioned the choice line. There are things we can do called trampolines. We can leverage trampolines to help us bounce back when we recognize, and this is the big part, when we recognize that our thinking is below the line. There are things we can do to help us bounce back to above the line. They're called trampolines. The biggest one for me, I'll share with you, is music. I have probably no less than 12 playlists at any given point. I have one in particular that's called Positive Vibes. I have put every song on that list I can't listen to and be in a bad mood. It's not possible for me. So music is a huge one for me. Next one is podcasts. This could be a leadership podcast. This could be an HVAC podcast. It could be anything. I have a variety, of course, of like different podcasts I listen to too. Sometimes it's just nice to like, okay, I don't want music. I want to like just be kind of like move to a different area. Podcasts can do that for me. Nature is one of the biggest ones that I admittedly tend to forget to leverage. I'm in Wisconsin right now. So going outside and having a walk, even in this cold, is no fun. It's like 5 degrees out. But I've done that the last few days where I'm just like, I feel like I need to get out of this environment with the fluorescent lights and the not having natural sunlight. So going for a walk, even if it's around the block, having sunlight that like just I think of this more of in summer, but like summer, I'll just walk outside and go lay in the grass or just like sit there on a chair and just like take the sunlight in. It can change your mood. It can also change your mood to just like walk away from where you're at too. It's okay to pause. So as I give you some of my examples, I'd love to hear in chat, what are those things for you? These are all strategies that are going to be unique to you, but what are those things that help you manage your mindset?
Can I share a quick story?
Sure.
It was 2022. It's like right when COVID happened. I was living downtown Sacramento. I was a brand new dad. I was back to work, working from home. And I was just in a terrible mood. I was overwhelmed. I was like, I need to go outside and get some air.
Mm-hmm.
And I just felt this overwhelming urge to scream as loud as I could to just get it out. And so I taken a deep breath, and as soon as I start to let it out, this female jogger passes right by me, and like as about right here, I scream at the top of my lungs, and she about jumps into the street. And she stops and she's like, why did you do that? And I just like got into this, conversation with her, and I felt so rejuvenated after that conversation. So like are people like, can you like, is an interaction one of those things that you
So I'm
can?
glad. So I'm glad you brought that up because I forgot to mention that. Trampolines cannot be people. I know that people are a phone call or a text message away and you want to distract yourself. This is about building resilience within your own self. You cannot leverage people as trampolines. So while you had that interaction, I think maybe just it may have just like changed it enough for you that you were like, whoa, and you kind of snapped out of it. Would be my guess. But yeah, welcome to personal development with CJ.
All right, I guess I'm
You've been
getting a free
invited
therapy
in.
session. You can type into the chat if you want any of your questions answered. I got some work to do on myself, apparently. It's okay.
Oh, if any, oh well, I mean, just because I teach this does not mean I have it down either. Just so you know, we're all works in progress. We're all figuring it out. It's not a competition. We're all messed up. It's really okay. As long as we're working on it, that's the big thing. It's not just going, oh well, it's just me being me. That's not really how things work. I can't see the chat. What are some trampolines that people are throwing out there?
The biggest one is go outside. Reading. Those are
Sure.
the two that are popping up. Reading's good. You got a nice reading list from this masterclass, Jermaine.
Yeah. Well, and reading is, I feel like that I put that in the same camp as podcasts. It's just consuming
Music.
content in a different way. So yeah, that's awesome. So those are some things we can do to leverage our mindset. The next key is understanding how to build trust. Because we need people to follow us in management and leadership. And if they don't follow us, it's probably because we don't have trust. Now, I will say, I'm talking about starting with trust with myself first, because we can't trust ourselves and keep promises to ourselves, then we're not going to be able to have other people trust us either. And so Brene Brown has done a ton of research. So add this one to your to your book list. But Brene Brown has done 20,000 hours worth of research on vulnerability, trust, all of that stuff. And so in order for us to create a psychologically safe place for our team to take risks or our team to know that we're going to fail, it starts with us leading and like having that self-assurance and us. So she broke it down and really gave an acronym of what is the anatomy of trust? What does it come down to? And we're going to defining trust, because trust is sort of hard to define. I think that, it's a lot of behaviors that we engage in. But it's trust is an abstract feeling. So she breaks it down into a couple different things. And her acronym is BRAVING: boundaries, reliability, accountability, vault, integrity, non-judgment, and generous. And I know that those are huge things. I'll share with you what each of them mean. The way that I really help people understand what their level of trust is within themselves is doing a checklist. So I actually have this from one of the workbooks from class, but it's a self-trust checklist, because so often these self-limiting beliefs and the fear and the stories we tell ourselves keep us from trusting us. But we need to be able to keep those promises to ourselves. So I want you to think, and again, screenshot this. I'll go through it somewhat fast. But over the last 2 weeks, I want you to assess where you're at in terms of self-trust. What can you say? Which of these behaviors can you say that you used? So for B, did I respect my own boundaries? Was I clear about what's okay and not okay? R, reliable. Was I reliable? Did I do what I said I was going to do? Accountable. Did I hold myself accountable? Vault. Did I act for my own integrity? Or I'm sorry, did I respect the vault and share appropriately? I jumped ahead. I, integrity. Did I act for my integrity? The last one, did I ask for what I needed? Was I non-judgmental about needing help? Because that, I will tell you, is a hard one for me. Feeling like it's okay to ask for help. And then the last one is, was I generous towards myself? Or how I rephrase that one to make it a little bit, this one doesn't always connect with people. I would say, did I give myself grace? Because you're not going to be perfect all the time. So I want you to just, I mean, again, we don't have to, this is only for you, but think about those things. Yes, CJ, I see you. Are you?
I was just talking about how great a bath sounds.
A
Jordan
bath?
says taking a bath for his trampoline or for her trampoline.
Oh,
Um,
oh,
sounds great. Like I would love to just not use my bathtub to wash dirty 2-year-olds, but
but you digress.
I digress.
All right. So that's a little bit on trust. Now I'm going to go even further. And speaking of the challenge of being able to delegate and let go. I got this quote from Craig Rochelle's podcast that I listen to. He does a leadership podcast. I know I'm throwing tons of resources at you, but you get what you get. When you delegate tasks, you create followers. When you delegate authority, you create leaders. And I can think about some of my favorite leaders, managers of all time, the ones that handed me the project or the ball, that were like, here you go, take it and run with it. Like, to be able to have that trust in somebody, it empowers you. I can't like really, it's hard to put that into words, but I think the best way is to talk about empowering. And so what's the difference? Because I want to give you like the difference of how those two sound. Here's how task sounds. Do this thing this specific way. That's delegating a task. Now, giving authority sounds like, here's the project. I trust you to figure it out. And I trust you to figure it out and probably do it a different way than I would do it, which I think is the hardest thing for us as leaders to let go of, is they're going to do it a different way for me. Even as a parent, like I think about that where I'm like, oh, okay, that's not the way I would have done it. But does it get you the same end result? Is the task completed? Is it done to your, your standards, right? That's the thing that that's the big difference about delegating authority and creating leaders and letting go of the vine. I'm not going to say it's easy, but that's one of the ways you can do it, is to start by that. The fifth key, understanding how to give meaningful feedback. Now, I know that a lot of managers that I work with, they give feedback. They may not give it as timely. I mean, I think like employees, from the research I've seen, employees need the feedback kind of a lot to be able to know that they're doing a good job, to kind of get that validation. So how do we make it meaningful? Because I think this is the miss. Trust is the biggest prerequisite to to be able to give feedback. And I learned this, and I'll be really vulnerable here. I learned this at a marriage conference at my church, where unsolicited advice is not a gift, was what the counselor said. And my husband quickly looks at me, and I was like, okay. Now, that said, a lot of times we don't want to give feedback because it's uncomfortable, or it's awkward, or we aren't even comfortable with accepting feedback, on ourselves. So my encouragement for you is, shift your perspective on why you're giving the feedback. If you truly care about the people that report to you, and they care about the people that, I'm thinking like levels down, right? If you care about their growth and development, that's why you're giving them the feedback on maybe that behavior they need to change. Because all we can do is point out the behaviors for them to change, but it's on them to do the work to change. And if they don't, like, we got to let it, like, that's the other part that's hard, is letting that go and going, all right, I gave the opportunity to change the behavior. What you do with it now is kind of on you. And so Zach Mercurio, I saw this on LinkedIn, but don't expect your feedback to matter to someone who doesn't feel like they matter to you. That goes back to trust. If I'm giving you feedback because I feel like I have to, or it's like a check the box thing of like, oh, I need to do this in my one-on-one because that best practice group said that's what I do. You have to start with the trust underlying in order to give that feedback to that person. So there's a formula that I use, and I think it's great, is it's very, very simple, is why I like it. Feeling, behavior, and impact. It's the FBI feedback method. And it really, where I think traditional feedback goes versus this is, we usually start with like hey, thanks so much for doing that. And you're like, okay, like, you're welcome. This is a little bit deeper. So normally when I see feedback from a manager, I'll be like, thank you for staying late last night to clean up the job site. Really appreciate it. And it sort of stops there. If you can go further and talk about the impact, you being able to stay late and clean that job site up allowed me to go to my baseball game. And I was there, and guess what? I got brownie points with my son. I got brownie points with my husband. I got, like, the impact was bigger than just you staying after. Because I think a lot of times employees don't think that they're going above and beyond. And so have people help, help them understand why it was meaningful. It makes it a little bit deeper. And the other thing, the other piece of stats I'll give you is from Gallup. Gallup says that employees who receive daily feedback from their manager are 3 times more likely to be engaged than ones who don't. I'm not advocating, if you're already giving feedback, great. You don't have to go, like, that's awesome. Are you doing it daily? Are you doing it weekly? Are you making an intentional effort to give feedback in a meaningful way? You don't have to go from 0 to daily, but just start by making it once a week. It'll transform the way you lead, and it'll transform the way that your people, interact with you. The last key, and this is the one that I get a lot from owners as well, is, okay, now that I understand, like, I need to understand how to develop talent, or identify it first and then develop it. How do I do that? There's a couple characteristics that I'm going to go through. When you talk about emerging leaders, they're high potential employees, or HIPOs is the other way that we describe it. And that's my HR background coming in. But to me, there's a few traits that signify a high potential employee. They're consistently performing well in their current job. They demonstrate a strong drive for growth and development. Like they're constantly wanting to like learn new things or try different things. They have very much that learner mindset. Do they live your values? That's a big one of just like, we have values, they're on a mug or a coffee cup, but like the only way that values exist in the workplace is if you're living them and it's like breathing. Are those people a positive change agent? When change comes into the organization, are they a positive change agent? That's the other one I'll say. Leadership is about behavior. So what are the other behaviors that I see from people when they are ready for a leadership or management role? They're managing their own emotions under pressure. I've talked a lot today about emotional intelligence, but this is really at the core of like, again, I'm watching how this person acts. And when they're under pressure, they're not dealing with conflict with aggression, violence, getting angry, right? Or silence. They are calm, and I have that like this, not like the duck on the water where your feet are paddling like crazy underneath and you're just like chill on the top. No, this is like fully, I'm calm, I'm in control. Emotional intelligence in the simplest way I can describe it is recognizing and regulating our emotion. I'm recognizing with this feeling I have, I'm trying to regulate it, or I am regulating it. And for me to be able to do that allows me to be able to see it when it's on the other side of the table for me, like in an employee. So those are some of the things. They also put their needs before others' needs before their own. I know that we sometimes promote people into leadership and we think that they know why they want it. Sometimes they want it for the power and authority. So really understand that they're wanting to be that servant leader and serve others. They seek to understand before being understood. So they're not interrupting or talking over people. They're asking good questions. These are some of the things that they're doing. The other thing you can do is you can utilize those assessment tools. Like we talked about DISC and different ones. If you can take it from a data standpoint and not make it all subjective, then you can talk about strengths, weaknesses, and you can look for different gaps depending on that person's competency and where you want to move them. And so I'll go to jump down to the last bullet point, but companies that do the subjective and objective metrics in their evaluations have a 30% increase in performance evaluation accuracy, meaning that we're able to move people in positions more effectively. The last piece I'll touch on is providing not just a job, but a career. Have a conversation with your employees. If you want to move them into a management role, understand where they're at now and where they want to go and how do you help them get there? And I'm going to commit like a cardinal sin here in PowerPoint, but screenshot this. Like career path conversations don't need to be once a year and an annual review. They can happen quarterly. I know for the companies I've worked in, I should say, used EOS, the quarterly conversations was a huge opportunity for me as the employee to be heard about where I want to go and how I want to get there. If we have a difference of vision of where I see myself going versus where you see myself going, wouldn't you rather know that now than later? When you like move this person into a leadership role and they go, I don't want that. I just want to do my job and not anything. Like I like doing this. These are some questions you can ask them. So this all leads into we have services and opportunities to support leaders at every single level of the organization. Find a partner that offers different solutions depending on the levels of leader that you have in your organization. We have some things I've talked about throughout today. Biggest question I have for you is, are you ready? Are you ready to turn your managers into leaders? CJ's got the poll up. I'm curious to know if you're on board.
I'm glad that there's no one saying no, they're not ready.
I was going to say that's okay. I'm very passionate about this. It's not just, yeah.
Amber said she almost.
I almost said no. I appreciate the honesty, Amber.
All right,
okay.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you for that. You may be ready. You might be going, I'm ready to start elevating my managers. I want to start. Right? I want to gauge your readiness. So do you want to start elevating your managers to become profit-driving leaders? Did you put you have the new one, right, up there?
The new one is for the next slide.
Okay.
Launched.
Sorry, I'm late on the game. Okay, so you could also be going, I'm not sure. I don't really know where to start. I want to have a conversation to learn where I should start. Help me help you. That's where you have a conversation with me and we kind of go, okay, give me an idea of what's going on in your company and maybe I can help, maybe I can't. Maybe I can refer you to somebody else that does it differently. But yeah. happy to have that conversation. And CJ, I'll let you decide on how many people have responded on that.
Yeah, I closed it.
Okay. So last thing and those are the drum roll moment. If you haven't filled out the form yet, we're giving away a seat to the virtual series that launches February 6th. Scan the code. Everything we talked about today, we're going to go into a deeper dive in those sessions. We do it every other week from February until May. So by May 1st, when sometimes, our busy season or the heat's hitting in different parts of the country, your managers can be ready to be they're going to be confident because they're going to have the skills and capabilities that they didn't have before. And so we won't be seeing is them going on autopilot and being reactive and being just not the best versions of themselves. They're going to have the skills and capabilities to be able to lead effectively. And the commitment is twice a month. It's 4 hours a month. We're doing it every other week for 12 weeks and going to get you ready to roll and them being ready to go by May 1st.
And I just want to touch on something that someone said in the chat.
Okay.
Jermaine says that they love the energy, great vibes here, and I think that that's a demonstration of how those biweekly virtual classes will go. Like it's a really fun, dynamic, vulnerable atmosphere, and we're just all together learning. Reflection of your style and your support and your love of this industry. So thank you guys so much, honestly, for the engagement that you've had today. I've done a ton of these, and this was by far my favorite. The chat was great. I loved vibing with you guys. And we got 17 people to fill out the form. So I put everyone, and I just added, there's another one that came in. So
do you want we need more time? I can speak. Let me just speak real quick to the note. One, thank you for seeing my energy and knowing that I'm very much what you see is what you get. That's an I trait. So the other thing is, if you have S's or C's in your team, I'm going to put them in breakout rooms a lot. I know I asked you guys questions and kind of put you on the spot. I will have people in and out of breakout rooms because that's where people that aren't so comfortable with like talking in a big group. And by the way, I cap these classes at 12 people because I want to have maximum interaction. I don't want people to feel like they're on the spot. But the coolest thing about this is the people that are learning from one another. Like I have contractors in the program right now, and it's awesome for them to just, even at the end, if we have time, I'm like, hey, are there any challenges or issues you're running into? Do you want some help from myself or from the group? Some of those conversations are the ones that are the best because they're hearing from their own peers that are really navigating the world better than I do, day to day. And so it's very cool for them to feel like they're not alone too in those challenges. So is that enough time?
That's incredible. I put everybody that filled out the form into a random like spinner, just to randomize the pick. So drum roll.
Yeah, I'm gonna mute my thing if I end up doing that. I'm just not gonna touch it.
Yeah, right. Sarah Muscatello.
Nice.
Super pumped to have you. She's from the heat pump store. Really great. Like I'm just overwhelmed with excitement to get you that free seat and to get you into this long-term investment to grow your management with Elise. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah. Yay. Well, thanks for the opportunity. I appreciate it. Thank you guys very much.
Absolutely. Thank you, everyone. I'm going to open. We're right at the hour. So I'm going to, if everybody's wanting to hang on and ask some questions, I'm going to send us live and we can have a little dialogue. So I've just been thinking and seen some Q&As come in. Where should an HVAC business owner start? Like, is it the DISC assessment?
I'm gonna go back to what's your goal and all of this, like why would you do so? One doesn't wake up in the morning and go, I should invest in leadership development. Like what's the end goal? Why are you wanting to do it? Why now? Those are some of the questions I guess I would think about. Is, are you doing it for yourself? Have you invested in yourself before in your own development? I would encourage you to start there. If it's not okay, I'm sorry. I'm seeing the questions come in. I got distracted. Squirrel. So that's, I guess I would start with this. I go back to like, why do you want to do why do you want to do it? Is it to better communication? Then start with DISC. It's a really great entry point. That's a lot of times when I'm working with contractors, and DISC is something you can do when you have 3 employees or you have 30. I mean, it's just a great tool to help everybody. And it's a really nice opportunity for you to give professional development for your employees too. Hey, do you want to learn more about yourself and how you communicate? It's going to translate in the workplace. It's going to translate to them at home. You know, it's a nice entry point that way.
Yeah, I agree. Jordan has a question. How do you start if your leadership team is cynical to leadership development? I feel like that happens quite often.
That is the trades in a nutshell. Because we've seen, and this actually just came up last week. I have a construction company client that I work with, and they basically said that, well, like, we've seen this model, like this, like, blow up and, like, you know, oh, I'm really sorry. Like that happens so constantly. The question I always ask is, how is it working for you right now? How are you retaining your employees? What's the culture like? If you can't answer positively than that, then I guess my question would be, then I guess you're just going to keep doing what you've always done and you're going to get what you've always gotten.
Right. And
you can be, you know, oh, it's hot and cold. Very cute.
Yeah. I don't know if y'all are familiar with Contract University, EGIA, but I was with them for 5 years, and, you know, just worked with a ton of HVAC contractors to, you know, develop their ongoing training. And the best organizations that I've found, you know, maybe they've built their own training facility. They definitely have dailies, if not weeklies. And honestly, like, some people think that turnover is a problem in the industry that just can't be fixed. And that's simply just not true. Like, the best companies are retention professionals, retention pros. Like, they take care of their employees. They identify what their employee cares about personally and aligns that with the company goals and works progressively to help the individual achieve their goals. And that in turn, it helps them achieve their company goals. There's a formula, and Elise has it.
And the other thing that when I talk to owners too, a lot of times they'll be like, well, I'm so nervous to pay them more. I don't know if I can pay them more. You don't always have to pay them more to retain them either. If you invest in their growth, invest in their development, I'm putting $2,800 worth of an investment into your growth. And I say that when they come to the session, I'm like, hey guys, like, this isn't the norm everywhere. I mean, and this is trades wide. Like, not everybody invests, not every company invests in their people. These people are putting an investment in you because they believe that you can do it. Because sometimes they just don't think that they're even worth it. You know? So that's a retention strategy in and of itself, to me, is leadership development. They show up differently. You show up differently when you've gone through this work.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. I want to be respectful of everybody's time. It's 6 past the hour. Elise, do you have any closing words for everybody?
No, I think I've said enough.
Okay. Well, again, I appreciate everybody's interaction. I mean, we have like 50 people that are hanging out still. So it just really speaks to, you know, the content, and, you know, I'm going to pump myself up a little bit. I think I was doing a pretty good job, minus that hiccup in the beginning. So, yeah, thank you very much, Elise. I'm really looking forward to this, you know, ongoing virtual series, and hopefully we can get, you know, all these great people out there and tuning in virtually, and hopefully we get to some in-person sessions too, because I'd love to meet every single person here.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, guys, I'm gonna leave you with one additional opportunity to sign up for that virtual series. As an attendee today, we're gonna take $300 off of the registration for you. So just use the code IMPACT when you sign up for the registration form. I'm going to put up a QR code that goes straight to the landing page, so you guys can learn a little bit more, fill out that form. But we're definitely going to be reaching out and having some, you know, thoughtful conversations with you about how we can help your managers grow into leaders. So thank you so much. We'll see you soon.